This is a Barita Podcast, which is a medium for information purposes only. This podcast is not a recommendation to buy or sell any securities. This isn't a research report, nor intended to serve as a basis for making any investment decisions. Contact a licensed investment advisor before making any financial decisions. Let's get into the Barita Podcast.
Welcome everyone to the Barita Podcast. Remember, you can see past episodes at barita.com/podcast. Minister Hill.
What a pleasure, Raul.
Thank you very much for joining
Thanks
us.
for having me.
All right, great. So, we were just talking a while ago. You've been quite a number of things in government, right? Senator, ambassador, deputy president of the Senate. I hear you learned you were a deputy leader, no? Right. But right now, you're Minister of Industry, Investment and Commerce.
That's right.
I know you have a name change in mind to simplify the communication of what the ministry does.
The business ministry.
Yes. So, tell us a little bit about the ministry, what its objectives are, and really what you're focused on.
The ministry, as the name suggests, handles industry, investment, and commerce. But to simplify it, it really looks after business and all the activities that relate to business. And in order to do that, it has 22 agencies. Many of them, JAMPRO, JBDC, that's Jamaica Business Development Corporation, JANAC, that's an accreditation agency, Bureau of Standards Jamaica, a number of other.
The Bureau of Standards is
in the business ministry. Really? CLA, the Cannabis Licensing Authority, and JIPO, that handles intellectual property. A whole bunch of agencies in the ministry, and they all have particular function. Two are going to be merged: Consumer Affairs and the other agency that looks after all the other consumer issues. We're going to merge them both.
Fair trade.
Fair trading. And then, of course, we have the trade board. The trade board is in the ministry. Oh. So fair trade and the Consumer Affairs Corporation, they're going to be merged. I want to emphasize that because while I say the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce is the business ministry, people tend to think, Raul, that you only look after business. Well, a big part of business has no business unless it has consumers who will buy from business. Yes. So in order to make the playing field level and fair, the ministry also has that responsibility to look after consumers. So we do consumer fair testing. We go out in the market to make sure prices are fair and people are not being gouged. So we have that consumer responsibility in addition to looking after the business affairs of business.
Okay, and then so you're looking after the consumer specifically, but then there's a whole regulatory framework, because you mentioned the Bureau of Standards, and it's funny, intuitively to me, I didn't know the Bureau of Standards was under the Ministry of Investment, because again, it's just not intuitive, right?
That's right.
But the regulatory environment is very important, right, if we're going to have growth in business and the economy.
Talking about the regulatory and accrediting authorities, JANAC, the Jamaica National Accrediting Corporation, it's very important. It serves 10 countries in the Caribbean, including Jamaica. We just, when we were you were on the mission with us to Guyana. Yeah. Well, at that time, JANAC actually accredited the forensic department and the forensic lab in Guyana.
Really?
That's actually ahead of our forensic lab being accredited here. So our forensic lab now is really running hard with JANAC to get accredited. But it's very important that you have these accreditations. For instance, some years ago, JANAC accredited the rice producing lab in Guyana. Rice is very important in Guyana. It's one of our biggest imports from Guyana. And we now have the FDA, Food and Drug Administration in America. JANAC is one of 4 bodies that the FDA credits. One of them in the United States, and there are 3 outside. We're one. Of the 4, we have
3 outside of the
and we have one
entire world.
Yes, and we have one.
Well,
and we among the 4, including the one in the U.S., we have agreed and tested and have been approved to handle 10 of the 11 protocols of the FDA. We're the only one that has 10, and we're going after the 11th. Now, what that does, when we accredit the rice lab in Guyana, and they sell rice to the United States, when the rice gets to whichever port in the United States it lands, they never have to have an FDA test again, because JANAC has used as accreditation to accredit the lab in Guyana, and therefore they're home free. So any product that leaves Jamaica, for instance, whether it were to be mango or anything else we want to sell, and JANAC accredits a lab that tests and approves it, they go through without further testing in the USA. So it's a very important development. Similarly to the Bureau of Standards, which then, for instance, the blocks that you make, more and more we're going higher stories, 15, 20, we want to go up to 60. Those blocks have to be tested. You have to make sure the right strength of cement is in there, and whatever else they put in a block to make it firm. BSJ does that. If you're getting steel, some of the steel things they have to check to make sure the calibration is right. And when I went over there to visit, Raul, it was most fascinating, the stuff that they do, that most Jamaicans, including their minister until then, didn't know that I did. So there's a lot of work that we do at the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce to make sure business operates well.
And that's big, because I remember a few years ago, the United States had a deadline for some standards, right? And it applied to any kind of food.
Right.
And those for wood.
HACCP and those kind of standards, yes.
So would that type of thing fall
all under? Those would fall under JANAC. So
if you have the JANAC certification, are you then not subject to further FDA testing once you get to U.S.
Once
Customs?
you get to the U.S., because we are FDA authorized to accredit labs, and any lab then that we accredit, the FDA doesn't require the material, the food that comes out of those labs to be tested, because JANAC accredits.
That's huge.
It is major. We just got a few months ago. I'm going to talk about it until people are tired to hear me. JANAC is doing great publicity on it, bringing to market, because it is so important. And 9 other Caribbean countries use JANAC as their accrediting agent. So we are looking at setting up a satellite office in Guyana, and JANAC, they were there with me. They're probably going back with me in December, and they're making sure that we have Guyana covered, because Guyana is going to grow so fast.
So, Minister, you're exporting government services. You're leading by example.
We're exporting services. We don't even bother who does it now. Government is Jamaica. We're exporting it, because everything, if you breathe, I want somebody to find a way to bottle it and export it.
Nice. No, I was talking, so before, like in preparation, I was talking to different people around the office and just different millennials that work for Barita. Because that's like our core audience, right?
Those are the guys of the future, and those are the guys that have money these days.
So I told him, I said, boy, Mr. Hill is coming, and they said, oh, Mr. Export, right? That's one of the comments that I got, right?
Point. No, you can't say the other ones if they're not keep them off the air.
No, man, it was so. I mean, we can definitely get into like a general conversation around business and business climate in Jamaica, right? So your goals as a ministry, is it fair to characterize them as like focus on growing business and thereby growing GDP in a safe, sustainable, but facilitating regulatory environment that is also fair to the consumer?
I'm going to sharpen the focus for you. We generally talk about growth and it's so vitally important for success. The Andrew Holness administration has done everything possible during an extremely difficult time, because we haven't had a pandemic for 100 years. We've just had a pandemic. We have, when it hit, and the numbers were looked at, Mr. Clark looked at the numbers, Cabinet looked at the numbers. Prime Minister went forward and said, look, we're looking to have a J-curve experience now. Every time in the past when you have a problem, it took, we borrowed money up to our gills that we can't pay for. And you take a long time to recover. For instance, after the 2008 meltdown, the stock market meltdown around the world, the subprime meltdown, which I know you're familiar with. We took about 11 years to recover. The problem before that, we took about 14 years. This time, we have recovered in about 3 years. And at the same time, we have not borrowed any money. All of those other times we go and borrow, and our debt went up to 147% to GDP. It's now less than 100. Our aim was to be at 60 in a very short time, but because of the pandemic, we stretched it back another 3 or so years. So it's probably 2028 we're now aiming at, to get our debt to GDP to 60 now.
60.
There are two ways to do that. You can either pay off the debt, which right now we don't have the money, or you go out and grow the denominator, which is GDP. Expand your GDP. You don't even have to change the debt, and the debt to GDP goes on. But if you can pay off some, expand your GDP, you see how far you are. So my aim is to look at the denominator. We want to grow the GDP. Now, the way to do that, we have 3 million people, Raul. We have a per capita GDP of under $5,000 US.
Amazing.
So, in relative terms, we're poor.
Yes.
No, people don't like to hear that.
Yes.
I know that. I am a very proud Jamaica. I have lived around the world, and I've flown the flag every single country. I've lived in 9 countries and done business in over 115. I stopped counting. So I fly that flag. But I'm a realist. I know that we don't like to hear that we're poor. It's part of that discomfort that an oyster feels when a grain of sand gets into his shell, or her shell. I don't know which one is made. She made that, does it? But the sand gets in there. And it's that irritation from the sand that makes them make wonderful pearls. The discomfort of facing up to the fact to ourselves that we're not a rich country. And how do I get to that? By comparison. Israel, we have 3 million people. Israel has 9.2 million people. They have a GDP per capita of $43,000 US thereabout, similar to Canada with 38 million people. So Israel is seen as a quite wealthy country compared to us. Yes. Now, compared to very weaker countries, very few, Jamaica is fairly wealthy, but compared to all our CARICOM countries, we're not. Go look at the numbers.
But all right, that number there, unpack it a little bit for me, because it's a 5,000 and less than 5,000 GDP per capita.
US dollars.
Is that a fair proxy? Like if I'm looking at a country and trying to figure out what's maybe average income for your workforce, is it a fair proxy?
Most people will use, if you notice, when I talk, I just gave you Israel, Canada. I'm going to give you Singapore. If you look at Grenada and Trinidad, it's the same measurement you will tend to use. Some people refine it to say GDP per capita. They'll say GDP in constant terms, but it's GDP that you use on a per capita basis, however else you refine it. So let's look at Singapore. I gave you Israel, 9.2 million. They have 43,000, the same per capita GDP as Canada. So they're not selling to 9.2 million people in Israel. They're selling to the world. When I lived in the Middle East, I know that Israeli oranges came to Kuwait and they were banned. So somehow they got them to Cyprus, repackaged them, and all of a sudden they turn up in Well, that's allegory.
Yeah.
I've never had the evidence that has happened.
Yeah.
I've heard that
the orange taste is really.
Yeah, apocryphally, you hear it along the way.
Yes.
So Israel exports around the world. But Israel has 9.2 million people. Singapore has a mere 5.7, a little bit more than us. Their
on what
per
kind of
capita
landmass?
GDP is between $70,000 and $83,000, depending on the exchange rate at the time.
Huge.
And the year that you're talking about. So that's roughly 16 times ours. Israel is what, 8 times ours? 9 times ours. And so Singapore did not get rich on that per capita GDP by selling to 5.7 million people.
No.
They sell around the world. Now, something I'm going to tell you, Raul, because I know, given me that you're as young as you are, you probably don't know this. I had my research team and I went back and I looked at the trade data for Jamaica from 1960, 2 years before we got independence. And only one of those years, one single year of those years, 1966, did we ever have a positive trade balance. No matter how you're going to tell me that it's not correlated, for 50 years of our independence to 2016 for sure, the average GDP growth per year was 1%. So that infinitesimally small GDP growth was indeed correlated to the consistent, perennial negative trade balances that Jamaica has produced. So if you look at countries that are rich, or that Luxembourg, which is right up there, number 1 or 2 or 3 in the world, or any other rich country, you see Germany. Germany got rich by exporting.
Yeah.
China only became wealthy. Their per capita GDP is still smaller than ours, but they became wealthy because they have size after they entered the World Trade Organization. When I think it was the Clinton administration let them in, and now people on the other side are criticizing them for doing it because China is now competing with the United States as the second largest. But they never came to that kind of wealth before they were able to export as they have. So I have no doubt in my mind that the number one focus of this ministry must be to get Jamaicans to export a lot more. Companies, big ones, medium-sized ones, small ones. As we saw in Guyana, all kinds of stuff is needed. They need big contractors, they need medium-sized contractors, small contractors. They have less than 800,000 people, 83,000 square kilometers of land, the size of Britain, thereabouts, I think, and rivers and timber and minerals and waterways, all of which the oil wealth is going to help them to develop. They need people, and Jamaicans should be ready, and so I'm carrying back Heart with me in December.
Aren't there like probably something like 10 times bigger than Jamaica in terms of physical mass?
Even more. Well, if you know what our square
mileage,
square kilometer is, and you see they're big.
So factors bigger than Jamaica.
Many times.
And less than half our population.
And less than a third of our population. It's 750,000, 780,000 Guyanese living there. And with that landmass, and when Dubai and Saudi Arabia start to grow, endless people, influx from all over the world went in with engineers and all kinds of other skills, and they have to be served. Housing has to be built, schools have to be built, roads have to be expanded, stadia have to be built, and so there are a lot of stuff to be built. So I'm going back in December, I think the second Monday in December, with a group of Jamaican contractors, different sizes, different capacities, to go and look at building partnerships with Guyanese contractors. Many of them are a few of them are big, many of them are smaller than ours, and they need our help. And they told us that we should come. We're bringing heart to help train and see what they need and how many Jamaicans we can train to help and go, and how many Guyanese we can help to train over there. So we're exporting that service as well. They said that we must bring the financial services. You and your team were there the last time. Other firms who I won't call at this instance were also
Appreciate
there.
it.
So, but I'm getting more of you guys.
Yeah.
And what I'm going to use your podcast to say this. When Japan was becoming big and important in the 60s and 70s, their businesses competed like dogs at home. They were rabid at each other. And out of that grew Hitachi, Sony, Matsushita, Mitsubishi. The big ones got better from competing at home. Yes. But when they go overseas, Marubeni, all of them, if they have a big deal, it's them come together. So I'm recommending that when Jamaican financial institutions go overseas, and I'm talking about in Guyana, look at forming consortia among yourselves. Before you go to the big American banks, no, you come together, 4 or 5 of you, and say, look, we need $1.5 billion from you, or $2 billion from it. Then they can listen to you because you have 4 balance sheets of substantial size, and you have much better bargaining power when you're looking for 1.5 or 2 billion versus 200 million that individually you might ask a financial firm in the United States to deliver. So you're going to get Guyana, and the size of Guyana gives us a humph and the chance to come together to be robust in order to deal with bigger American and European banks as we seek to grow our own financial institutions through this experience in Guyana.
So that's actually very interesting, right? And I mean, I'm glad you said it.
I'm glad you would find it because you're in the heart of it.
Yes. That's interesting. I mean, stay tuned. Let's see how
you guys make that work.
Yeah, how it's
and remember
received.
Now, it's something I know.
Yeah.
I have practiced it. I've had to do it for 35, almost 40 years.
How many countries have you banked in?
I have banked and lived in Jamaica, of course, the United States. I've lived in India. I have lived in Sri Lanka. Lived in Kuwait. Lived in Oman. And lived in Italy.
You lived in Italy as well?
Lived in Italy as well as a banker. All those places I've lived as banker.
There you go.
So maybe I left out one, whatever, but I know it's 9.
We get the idea.
It's a few. And then I've traveled worldwide from Australia to Sweden.
All right. It's very exciting, because I was, all right, you touched on a lot of things, and coming up to this, we were talking a lot, right? So I spoke to a number of young people, a number of millennials, that I'm going to give you some feedback from their Jamaican experience, right? But one of the things I was saying to them, like if we use the GDP per capita as a proxy for average wages in Jamaica, $5,000, we're a little over 750,000 Jamaican dollars in annual gross income. No,
I'm glad you're doing that math.
That's a problem.
So when I say that we're a poor country, you've just translated into Jamaican dollars to see how much that means per year.
So poor.
That's not a rich salary by any means.
By any measure at all.
Okay.
So we
know it's average, but that's what we have to deal with and talk with them when you're talking about country.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially from where you sit from a policy point of view.
Yes.
So looking at that, so we're going backtracking what we're talking about, because you brought up, you started with Israel and you mentioned Canada, but you went to Singapore, which to me is kind of a gold standard, right? So for me too. If we're aiming at Singapore, in terms of we're setting a goal, that's
and we hit Israel.
We're good.
Not bad.
We're doing all right. So the question is really, how do we get there? Now we know that Singapore was not endowed like we are.
They didn't have water.
Imagine.
We're the land of wood and water.
And I know you're Mr. Water, right? Hopefully we have time to touch on it a little bit.
I was, yes, chairman of NWC. Yes.
So all right. The thing is, when I talk to the my peers.
Yes.
Right? I talk to millennials around Jamaica. I say, boy, it's tough. They're not seeing opportunities in Jamaica. They're saying, it's hard to buy a home. It's hard for me to see myself buying a home. The salary levels don't allow me to live at even any kind of basic standard of living that I might have in my mind, right? And a lot of the time when we talk to them, their education is quite exemplary.
Quite good. Well,
right?
They get jobs overseas. And you
Exactly.
go overseas and get jobs.
Exactly.
So the education is okay.
So what's your response there as a policymaker and somebody that I know is very focused on improving the experience of the average Jamaican?
I'm going to go back to Economics 101.
Mm-hmm.
The factors of production are land, labor, and capital. Also in Economics 101, everything depends on supply and demand. What regulates supply and demand in a free economy is the pricing mechanism. So when you have an abundance of labor, as we have had, because our unemployment has been high perennially, like our trade balance, our negative trade balance, and our low economic growth, our unemployment has been high perennially. So how much price you get for it when mango is plentiful?
Not much.
You can't get much.
Not much.
Nobody no one buy it from you. They can go pick it up from the street.
Yes.
However, under the Andrew Holness administration, and since 2016, since we've been trying and working hard to fix the economy, yes, and I'll give credit to Dr. Phillips and his team who did the hard job with the IMF, but we could have jettisoned it. We carried it and lifted it to a higher level, we made the central bank independent. Remember the fight they had about foreign exchange. You have to control the foreign exchange. Nobody talks about foreign exchange anymore.
And I tell you something.
And that's about a year.
Traveling in the Caribbean has personally given me a great appreciation for the Jamaican foreign exchange regime.
Of what we've done.
Trust me.
You have your money, you go to Barita or the other banks and buy your currency.
Jamaican dollars is real exchange.
It's real exchange. You can change it for serious hard currency and no restrictions in the bank.
Yeah.
People don't understand what that means. And I remember how they fought us and fought Nigel, and Nigel had to explain inside the party and outside. I'm telling you that is true. And now nobody talks about it. And we had promised that in time you will not speak about it, because all you really want is that you want to be able to buy the US dollars or the British pound if you need to get it. Take your Jamaican dollars and then you do it. So we have that. We did that. So what?
And by the way, just to bring it to what it actually means, I had a meeting when we were overseas
in Guyana
with a local banker, and he was saying that he had a client that had some money offshore in another Caribbean country.
Right.
$1.5 million US dollars. Been trying to get it out for 2 years.
Can't get it out.
So the question is,
and we all can take 10 guesses and guess where it is. You can't get it out.
The question is this: if my 1.5 million US dollars is
1.5 is an important now. You can repeat it again in a row. You can say 1.5 again. I don't mind.
but the question on liberalized foreign exchange in the country, my thing is, if I put money down in Jamaica for investment, right? As an investor, if for whatever reason I'm moving capital around, or if I have to pay bills, I can get it out, no problem.
You can get it out without any. You don't have to go to a bank and line up. You don't have to sign no paper or anything. You do your RTG and tell them that I want US dollars, put it here and gone.
And because the question to me is, if I can't get it out, do I really have the money?
Well, it's interesting. I'm going to come back to your question about the millennials, but I'm going to tell you this. You asked a very important question, which is part of what makes Jamaica such an attractive investment destination.
Yes.
When I took over the National Bank of Oman, BCCI crashed the bank and they hired me to come in and fix it. The Minister of Defense in Oman was in California. Like said, BCCI crashed on a Friday. Monday morning, him turn up in a bank in California. Some little young blonde chick carrying BCCI traveler's checks. That time people had traveler's checks. 1991 to change. This little young chick out of college says, "What is this? BCCI doesn't exist. What is this?" I mean, really wondering if you want to defraud our bank.
Wow.
It's the Minister of Defense of Oman, His Majesty's uncle.
Wow.
Said hi to him. His Highness called up the Defense Chief of Staff and tell them that they must take the troops must take all their money out of NBO. I mean, I run the bank and I may just take it over.
Whoa.
Like 2 or 3 weeks.
What did you do?
So what am I going to do? So the reason why I remember, because the key about financial security is not where you can put your money. It's can you take it out?
Where you can get it
Can
from.
you take out your money? So every time they tell me about who is going to be the next superpower in financial activities, I have one question for you. When there's a crisis, are you going to put your money in that capital? When there's a crisis, it's only go. It even leaves London and Frankfurt. It goes to New York.
Yes.
But so Said said move the money. So we got come together, bring my team together. We said what we're going to do. So you know what we did? Bedouins in Oman have the right to walk around with their rifles, and they do. It's a right. And them turned up in the rifle. And not to shoot anybody, but to demand their money. Not to stick you up and say we want our money like Lebanon, but to say, look, we want our money.
But that could have been fun either way.
No, Said said we must take out the money. And he's the Minister of Defense and the Sultan's uncle. So we said, we got together and we agreed. Take out all the money in the vault and put it on the counter. Nobody steals anything in Oman because the sanctions are too great. Okay? So we put all the money that we had in each branch vault on the counter. Here's the money. So, Said, whatever your name is, here's the money. Safe, Khalid, here's the money. It's safe. And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, I'm looking at it. And then I walk out of the bank.
And so you can keep it.
We save ourselves by putting the money. In other words, as long as he knew he could get his money is safe.
Yeah.
It's not where you put your money that makes you feel safe. Some people feel that way, so you put it in Switzerland.
Yes.
What you really want to know is when you can get your money out when you want it. Yeah. So to go back now, we went through all that because we're talking about the pricing of labor.
Yes.
Remember now? The 3 things, factors of production, land, labor, and capital. Labor has been plentiful, or unemployment was very high. So businesses could pay
a low price.
And you can't blame business for that. If mangoes are plentiful, you're not going to buy it expensively. Yeah. That's how it goes. Yeah. So now, we are at a historic low in our unemployment. We're down to 6%, or just about there. Now, in an emerging market, 6% is very close to full employment. Now, we might go out and get some young people who are on the streets, get them apprenticeship and add to the labor pool. But businesses are demanding more and more labor. Then you're going to hear a sucking sound from Guyana. 780 people with 83,000 square kilometers of land to fix and build and grow. You're going to hear a sucking sound from Guyana coming to Jamaicans. Minister Clark has already announced that he's going to raise the salaries of people working for government. Remember that discussion? The police and the nurse and everybody else, they're going to raise their salaries. So people are not going to be so willing to leave government if the price rise is good, to go and work for private sector because they have more security in government. What they don't have in government is cash. So businesses can encourage them with cash.
Yes.
Well, if they're getting better cash, maybe not right up to business, but no security and cash, they're not going to leave so easily. So business will find out what the economic terms are. And when there's a scarcity, the price goes up, Raul. So I'm not going to say prices are going to go up. I'm just telling you how economics works.
Yes.
So you can then, when you run your business, Mr. Businessman, decide what you're going to do. Are you going to be in there first trying to keep your employees by treating them better, maybe paying them somewhat a little better because competition has changed? And so I expect that the issue of you talking about not having, I mean, 750,000, you're talking about 5,000 US dollars, you just translate into Jamaican dollars. That's not a lot of money. It's less than $1 million. So we're not rich. So people have to get paid differently, I imagine, as the unemployment issue. What will also happen, of course, there are certain skills that we will not have in the country. Yep. Singapore doesn't have all its skills. The United States doesn't have all its skills. So you're going to have to import skills. So you have to see that as a reality. But also at the lower levels, some businesses will find that they will have to do something down there to make sure that they keep their employees or get new ones that they need them. And again, it's supply and demand. I'm not saying what must happen. I'm just telling you how it will work.
So, I mean, is it fair to say that your ministry is focused on maximizing employment?
My ministry is focused on maximizing right now exports. Why? I'm not even waiting till we have more investments to export. People export water. And all you do is bottle it and put a label on it and on your export. So people are now exporting. But Raul, you think about this, you and your peers, when you go out together, how many times you ever talk about export? You talk about Rishi Sunak is now British Prime Minister. You hear an election coming up next month for Biden and whoever else running against him. What is happening here? We have good things going on in our music business and so on, and we have some problems. We talk about all those things. We might even talk about BAMI, but we don't talk about export.
Well, in all fairness, remember a lot of my peers work at Barita, so conversation might be a little different.
No, but that's the point. But the point, you guys are at the higher level in our economy, at your peer level, and you don't speak about export. So if we don't speak, I bet you everybody in Singapore, practically everybody in Singapore and Israel talk about export. They might export something to United, and it's Israel, United States and Europe. Why aren't we doing the same thing? So now I want that conversation change. In changing the conversation, I remember about 4 months ago, I spoke at one of these things where I spoke about my export. A lady in there about 3 weeks later come back to me. Young lady, one of the millennials they're talking about. She was making some product or other, I don't remember if it's beauty product or food product. You say, no, I thought about exporting, but I never give it much thought. When you spoke,
First mistake.
I went and I looked what I can do in Florida. And today I have sent off 1 or 2 containers, and I'm developing more to send. Containers, you know? The woman never export before. So she find a way through Jampro and customs to get her export going. And other people, Mrs. Muncie she has this wonderful food product that she's looking to sell to Guyana. She was there with us, and you probably saw her, or may even have talked to her. And she's looking to source things in Guyana, process it here, ship it around the world. Big business. She's looking from a small business. Most of what she makes right now, 75% of it is export. And she's an SME. She's not even yet listed on the stock exchange. She's looking to go in that direction. So she's looking, I think, this year or early next year to be listed. So you see, it's not just big business I'm talking about. Big businesses are exporting, and more. We want them to export more. You know, Grace, Wisinko, all these guys, Jamaica Brothers Group, they're all exporting. But we want them to export more. But we want more people to export more. And so that's the first focus. Why am I focusing there? Because when you're exporting more, you see more market, you begin to invest. You begin to go to other people like Barita and the other financial houses who have money to help people invest, whether through equity or debt, and then they build their businesses. You employ more people. So I don't start off with employment issue. I start off with selling.
Yes.
Sell what we have.
Yes.
Find new markets. When you start exporting, you have to raise the quality. So you have to invest more. So we have better businesses that employ more people. So it works out across the border. So my focus is that export, because we haven't looked at it at all. I mean, 1 year in 60 years is when we make a positive trade balance.
For a small trade-dependent economy,
Are we mad?
right?
For trade-dependent, we buy everything.
Don't make any sense.
Well, let me tell you what the numbers sound like last year. We spent $5.975 billion buying goods and services, US dollars. We exported, listen to this, $1.441 billion US dollars. The gap is $4.5 billion US dollars to fix our water system, where downtown will cost 800 million US dollars. To fix the water system, a study we had done by Castelli, it will cost us $4.5 billion to fix the NWC, and part of it through privatization. That's what our trade gap is. One item on our import bill roll costs us $2 billion. That's the import of oil. So you see, so the $2 billion dwarfs 1.441, but it also tells us that that $2 billion better be quickly converted into renewable things that we make here, or we offset that rather than then send our money to produce jobs for oil producing countries.
Yes.
We need to look at the whole. That's why I'm so pushing export, so that you also look at imports.
But I mean, all right, so I have like simple rules in life. You see, certain people, when they're going after opportunities, it piques my interest, because our group CEO is the type of man that you hear him talking about something is like when you check it out, it's usually huge.
Because he's gone through it long time.
Yeah, and I mean, I have you on my list, right? So I hear you talking about exports, but if you look at the numbers, and I mean, maybe you can explain this to me. I mean, you just said we're at a little under 1.5 in terms of exports against the economy that maybe, give or take, is like 14 billion. So maybe we're
5 billion.
We're right around 10% of GDP in terms of exports. And I looked at, I saw a number for Singapore's exports that was a triple-digit number.
Of course. That's how they're rich. So
the export.
You're going to probably say the same thing for Germany, and certainly for Israel, I can bet. Luxembourg for sure. And Luxembourg exports a lot of services, not so much
goods,
phones and digits and gadgets.
Yeah. So the thing about it, the point I'm making is the export opportunities are a gigantic one.
Huge one.
Right? So I want to, I'm going to come to a couple of things, because in the same conversation that I was having with my peers about, where salaries are, where GDP per capita is, I was saying that if the average Jamaican steps back for a second and takes a more global point of view, you will see opportunity.
Absolutely.
That was my perspective.
Which is why I want to open their minds.
Yeah.
That's why I want you all, whenever you go and have a drink, you have to be in there like the evangelist. Like if Paul is anywhere, St. Paul would find a way to talk about Jesus. My approach is, if anybody invite me to a burial, I'm going to find a way to talk about export. So if you don't want to hear about export, don't invite me to your funeral.
All right, well, so let's talk about it, right? Let's talk. I mean, from our point of view, so we're in Guyana. Let's talk a bit about Guyana, and
which was a very good experience. I mean, I'm sure you'll attest to that.
Yeah,
because you will have talked to people who I wouldn't talk to in detail. You would have talked to your peers in business, and they all said, when I had short discussions with them, that they were very pleased as to how it went.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm looking, and again, you talk about, I know for me, like I said, I came back with a deep appreciation for like So I was excited by the opportunity, but then I also came back with a deeper appreciation for Jamaica, right?
Absolutely.
So like even what we've done with our, we're in finance, so our financial system, our capital markets. By comparison,
you're way ahead, years ahead.
So Jamaica seems to be like a regional leader.
And they're looking to Jamaica. They are honestly not feeling put down. They look to Jamaica and say, yes, we want to, because your central bank is so good and stock market is well regulated. Bloomberg rates it. So they're very pleased to look at Jamaica.
That's what I found. I found in capital markets and in cricket, they had high regard for Jamaica. So
we had just won a match. 2020. In Guyana, and they were cheering for us. Yeah. They were not in the finals, so we were their choice.
Exactly. So I found that, and I mean, I must say too. Thanks for the invite. We were treated very well at airports and so forth. I mean, I really appreciated that. But so the export I'm thinking about is our capital markets.
Of course.
Right? I'm thinking, what is going on in Guyana? I don't know. I mean, you can tell me what you think. I mean, I'll tell you my perspective of it and you can share.
Let me hear what you come away with and then I'll give you some. I had extensive discussion with the Minister of Finance. So I'll tell you what my perspective is. Go ahead.
That's great. So I went down there and there are just a couple of things that struck me. I'm saying this is a country that is expected to grow 57% this year, right? I mean, this is
and that
this
could be low. It could be low.
No, this is a country growing like a stock. And when I looked at IMF projections at 5 years out, they have a nominal average north of 30%. This is right. GDP growth, right? Looking 5 years out. And I said to myself, wait, what's going on here? I mean, I heard they were building 4 highways simultaneously, right? I wasn't able to send the drone out to check where all the highways are, but what I did do, we drove to the airport, and the traffic was just like standstill. And when I investigated the traffic, it was trucks carrying aggregate, stuff, building materials.
That's right.
And I said to myself, wait, hold on.
I saw the plans for the ring roads and the roads. It's amazing.
And so I'm looking at it and I'm saying, I see the new hotels, right? These guys say, hey, a couple years ago,
they have 6 or 7 hotels being built right now.
There was no hotel here.
One is being built by a Jamaican contractor, financed by one of your competitors.
Well, there you go. I mean, we went down there, and first of all these hotels were full. They were
every single one of them,
right? Getting a room was a whole experience. Right. You understand? So it's just like, okay, all right. There really does seem like something, real stuff is happening here. Hey, listen, Minister, I come back and I tell my friends, and they're saying, boy, what was Guyana like? I said, all right, imagine you're driving in Papine one day and you see the place is zinc off, and then you wonder what's going on there, and in 6-8 months, the zinc come down and Apple has built a campus in the middle of Papine. I mean, we went out in Guyana, and I mean, where Halliburton had their plant, it's like a gold rush, and everybody's like, listen, I need this, I need that. We need people, we need land, we need all the factors of production.
Everything.
And so we went out and met with business, right? Because in my mind, Minister, I'm saying this country is huge, right? This is an opportunity like I've never seen.
Take those opportunities.
And I'm talking to business and they're saying, guys, we need capital.
All right.
We need capital markets. I feel like I'm witnessing a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Let me tell you this. I have had the privilege of watching the Middle East build out in their wealth. Mm-hmm. And we used to have this joke as bankers going to Dubai, that we would go to Dubai and drive down the street to go to the central bank. As bankers, you have to go and pay penance to the central bank. And by the time we come back in the evening, there's a 40-story building built and the road has changed. Sheikh Mohammed has built a 40-story building and the road has changed, and you have to drive somewhere else. It was hyperbole, yes, but to make the point.
Yes.
Well, look at Guyana. Guyana had listen to this, $1.7 billion US GDP about 3 years ago. This year it's about 7.1. You see the multiplier. You see how many multiples that's gone up, and you hear where you're projected to go.
Minister, so, I was looking at projections that said the resource fund would have 14 billion by 2026.
Their aim is to be well managed and looked after, like not even the Singapore fund or the Abu Dhabi Investment Authorities fund, but the Norwegian. Whoa. That's where I spent a lot of time with Dr. Asne Singh, who is the Minister of Finance, and we had an extensive discussion because clearly my Middle East background, banking and so on, it was very interesting, very interesting. Mm-hmm. So you look at what is happening in Guyana, and I suggest to you that Guyana is going to be certainly to CARICOM or part of the Caribbean, what Saudi Arabia was to Dubai, Oman, all these various Emirates, mm-hmm. even Kuwait, which is a really big economy. Mm-hmm. So I'm saying to Jamaicans, for heaven's sake, don't let everybody else come from everywhere else and beat us. Mm-hmm. Go there, follow the rules. They want to have partnerships. They don't want people to come in and be carpetbaggers. Yes. But instead of looking to own all of a little grape, mm-hmm. take the view that you want to find a big melon and get a big slice of a big melon rather than all of a grape. Rather than be crab in the bag. Mm-hmm. No. We're going to participate. We're going to have partners. Mm-hmm. We'll have a big share of a melon, mm-hmm. and forget the little grape. Mm-hmm. So that's where Guyana is going to be. Jamaica is very well poised because they like Jamaicans. We have a good relationship with mm-hmm. them. They want us, and we will have to look at improving our diplomatic arrangements with them. We raise it to a much higher level. Mm-hmm. And as I tell you, I plan to go back the middle of December, taking an even bigger delegation.
Bigger than what you carried?
Bigger than the 35 that I had.
It was growing every day when we were down there.
People kept coming. I had people on the phone saying, why am I not down there? And so many of them have booked already.
Our team grew midweek by the way.
More people came down for you. So we're looking at that, mm-hmm. and Jamaica is well poised. Our economy is doing well. We can't predict the future, nor can you, mm-hmm. But we're going to make sure we keep the management structure going well to make sure we're transparent. We work towards moving our debt down, but more importantly, we work towards growing our GDP through exports and investments in exports. And I know that we have many hotels coming in the near future. You're going to hear Minister Ed Bartlett and the Prime Minister announce and open hotels. So Jamaica is seen as a very good and attractive investment destination. Our job in the Ministry of Business is to make sure we keep burnishing that reputation and that object as a investment destination to invite investors into Jamaica.
And by the way, when we met with the Chamber of Commerce down there,
yes,
they were saying, they were talking about opportunities in Guyana, and they were saying we need help with all kind of things. They're saying, boy, they need people, right? I was saying, boy, we definitely have people that can work down there.
We're taking heart with us this time.
We need agribusiness. I said, boy, we definitely know how to do that. Then the music to my ears was, we need help with tourism. I said, boy, if it's one thing Jamaica is globally competitive in. So I said to myself,
and they talked to me about that. They said they want our tourism experts to come down there and work with them to build their industry. And they don't necessarily want sand and sea. They said, no. We have lots of trees and rivers and places that you can overtake anybody in the world that has all these things that you ski down in the forest on.
Yes.
And they want to build environmental tourism. Mm-hmm. And we have people here who are doing it, Chucker and all of these other guys. So I'm going to talk to them and say, come on down with me.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a real synergistic win-win opportunity here. Because, like you said, it's less than a third of the population, 10 times the landmass.
Many more times than 10.
And I mean, when, people don't understand, when a ExxonMobil comes in and starts to write checks, I mean, the fine is what? It's 11 billion barrels that they've confirmed.
16 billion barrels confirmed.
Look at that.
And they're still drilling. And you can bet they don't announce everything that they found.
Absolutely. So, quite literally, ExxonMobil can sign off on an investment program that is bigger than the GDP of Jamaica. So to my thinking, I think this is a huge opportunity for us to do exactly what you said. We can cooperate, and I think everybody can win
in the
building
process.
Out. Yeah,
that's right.
So that's my view, and I think it's really just once in a lifetime.
And we need to grow. We cannot be happy with a 5,000 US dollars per year per capita GDP, less than $1 million Jamaican dollars. That doesn't make sense for a country that has so much prospect and people who are as smart as we are. We need to make sure that we are grow, and we have to have products and services that people want to buy, and we must create them, invest in them, but start even right now selling what we have in a better way and look for new markets. I'm not just going to Guyana. I'm going to take trade missions to various different places that make sense for our economy.
I'm saying, because I'm looking at it, I'm saying, okay, what does Jamaica do at a world-class level, right? Tourism is the kind of obvious one.
Tourism is and everybody sees Ed as the doyen of tourism ministers, and he's very good at it.
But then, listen, something that I don't hear a lot about, but I mean, you can tell me, I think about it. I feel like Jamaica has shown itself to be world-class in sport, right? Now, visiting America throughout my childhood, sport is big business. Right, sports is huge business, and I'm saying we have world-class athletes, we have world-class cricketers, right? Cricket is
I'm
big in
so
Ghana.
glad you bring this up, because now that gets me to talk about the special economic zone.
Tell me.
We have the special economic zone right here in Caymanas that we're looking to build out, 650 to 1,000 acres. We're looking for a master developer. And we're doing various things to help that. The government will seed it, will bring electricity, water, broadband to the gate, build a custom booth. But we want a master developer who will come in and build out the acreage to have people who want to do. For instance, there's nowhere in the world right now where you can go on a 15 or 20 acre lot for 3 days and suit out your hotel everything you want except for staff. The long supply chains make the Americans and Canadians, I imagine, more fearful of having their supplies of medicines coming from a long distance, whether it's China or Thailand or India or Japan or Switzerland.
Yes.
So we're 75 minutes away from Florida. Let us make, when the master developer develops, say, look, put up a pharmaceutical logistics center in Jamaica that serves clearly the Caribbean, Latin America, but importantly, you're 75 minutes away from the largest market in the world. It's what President Biden and his team are calling nearshoring and friendshoring. So we have that. You mentioned sport. That's the Caymanas special economic zone. We have 4 other areas we're thinking of where we put in, of course, the cricket stadium. Around there, we're taking up between 300 and 400 acres into a special economic zone. So a sports developer can come in and be a master developer as well, like I just described. And so somebody's there looking after, somebody takes a portion of the land to look after baseball. In the wintertime, the baseball people want to practice and basketball people and whatever else they have in the United States. But we go to the United States, investor goes to the United States and look at exactly what they want and take it one level higher. When you come down here to Jamaica, this is what you get. And you get your baseball down here, you get your track and field, you get your soccer, you get cricket. So we give you 300 acres to develop that. Then somebody else might say, I want to be in somebody's already in the special economic zone in Caymanas Park. They're doing logistics, but I want to do a special logistics for farmer development, packaging, whatever else you do, not just the selling and distribution. So we give you another 400 acres to do your farmer special economic zone. And so we go down. There'll be one that does creative activities. So you want to make movies and want to make music and you want to write books, come on down there. There's another 400 acres for this. And so we have those special economic zones being built, and encourage investors to come in and take it. So yes, we need to make sure that we have the investment avenues apart from tourism. Yes, we're going to get light manufacturing. Businesses are going to manufacture more.
Yes.
If they're going to sell more, they're going to have to manufacture more. So more manufacturing places will be going in. So we're looking at this grow, and we want to make sure the economic ecosystem, the right regulation, the regulation that does not impede but enables. Very often, Raul, I get the complaint, especially from millennials, that you guys here, I mean you older guys, you guys make rules that look to stop the 3% of people that do bad things. And all you do is make sure those rules hamper the 97 people who follow the law.
Yes.
They want us to flip our head.
Yes.
Okay? Flip the thing in your head and say, look after the 97% of the people who do things. So you encourage them to build things and grow and make better business and employ more people at better prices. And incidentally, the 3% that cross the line, you cut off one foot, figuratively speaking. You make the law so tough that when you break the law, and justice so sure and possibly swift, that when you break the law, you know that there's a cost, so you don't bother go down that road. And if you go down that road on purpose, we're going to deal with you. But don't let that hamper the 97% of people who really do want to do business well and will follow the rules. So we need to a bit flip our head, because all our regulations come from a long time ago, and all they do is to say, all right, most people are thieves, try and stop them from stealing. No, you can't build a country that way.
So, I mean, I'm glad you said that, because that's a big thing. That's a big thing. I want to, if I can talk directly to the millennials, and just addressing some of their concerns in the context of everything that we've spoken about. I mean, the way I'm seeing it and hearing it, you can tell me your perspective, but I see a lot of talent in Jamaica. I see web developers. I see content creators. I spoke to you about my video crew. These guys are really talented, right?
My office told me how very good they are. They went to check it out before I come. They said, Mr. Hill, they're on YouTube. They have a lot of followers. And I told as I came in, I told your team, because I want to make sure, the way I manage, if something goes well, I'm telling you that it's good.
Yes.
So that when I have to tell you it's bad, don't worry, argue.
Yes.
Okay.
Credibility, right? Credibility. I mean, so my thing is, building materials. Of course, we spoke about our tourism product. We have entertainment product. We have all of these things, but the important thing about all of these goods and services I mentioned, they're tradable, right? So if, I tell you a story. So I met in one of the other meetings in Guyana, right?
Yes.
Talking to the bank.
See, Guyana was good for him.
We were talking to a guy that run a bank down there,
yes.
Right? Managing director. I was like, so tell us about the experience, what's it been like? I said, boy, it's been interesting. He said he had a PR person that worked for the bank for how long or whatever. And they say, ExxonMobil decided they wanted her, right? Exxon just make her Fepple 5 times
the salary,
just make her offer,
which is nothing for them. Just come. Here's the money.
And so when she told him, he was like, "Yeah, man, go."
and car and housing allowance and everything.
But the point is, what I'm saying is, the opportunity is out there.
Yes,
the opportunity is out there. We spoke about the wage situation in Jamaica, but expand your horizons and think through. Okay, what can you offer to the marketplace? Because as much as as simple as it might seem, mindset I think is important, because one of the things that Guyana in particular and business trips in general have done for me is just the perspective. You meet these people and it's the same Jamaicans, and you say no, but they're thriving.
They behave differently.
They're thriving. The thing about it is,
I met one of the lawyers down there, man. You must have met him. Thriving. He was with Digicel here and really thriving. But
by the way, I brought him to the thing.
You brought it.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, man.
So then we have people who are a little bit reticent. Sometimes you just go out and look around and come back, work for a little bit and come back. I mean, I am speaking to you as a non-resident Jamaican for 30 years.
There you go.
I went away to study. I went to Wall Street. I went to Europe. I went to Middle East, as I told you. I went to Asia. And 30 years later, I come back to run NCB at that time. So, and now I'm in government. So I'm saying to you, I know that there are opportunities next door. Guyana first. There are other places that we must look at. And also now, our people, our millennial people must begin to look at forming relationships with each other. You guys come together and form a company. Paul and his investors came together and look at Barita, bought it out. Mike came in and bought out NCB. No doubt using capital, his capital and some of other people's capital. So you have to look at doing partnership, because one of the best invention of Western capitalism is this.
Yes.
The limited liability company. It limits your liability and gives you a chance to participate on the upside in profits. And if you lose your money, you lose your money. Some people don't like that. They're going as an equity investor and they believe they have a right. You don't have a right. You put in your money and the options are you win or you lose. Sometimes it goes sideways. So, but if you loan money, then you're obliged to get it back. But when you are an equity investor, you're going to invest for the upside. But you have to give the company time in years to make the money work for you to get back your dividends and your capital gains.
On that point, Miss, if I can just make a little plug, I know that the government of Jamaica has done a lot with like bankruptcy laws over this, you know.
And the junior stock exchange that bring in billion, we saved it.
Which by the
we saved it.
And also founded it. But
we founded it. And when it was going to be closed, we saved it in 2016. The first thing Audley Shaw did when he came in was to make sure the junior stock exchange continued and got its benefits. And now billions of dollars have gone to people that would never see equity financing in their lives.
I mean, I have to give you that, and the numbers bear it out. Even as the main market has been in a bit of a malaise, this junior market is up. I looked at the numbers this morning. I mean, with 20% year to date, you're doing all right, right?
Good.
So, and that's a big deal. That's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
I have to say, I'm a stock market guy. I've friends and guys that have done very well as the stock market, and I said, boy, everything I have can be attributed to the stock market. I remember when you and I used to talk on the radio long ago and far away.
That's right.
It was 4% of Jamaicans that were shareholders.
In the stock market.
We're up past 10% now, right? Which I mean is still low, but that's a huge move.
Movement in
and the junior market is a big part of that. Yes,
and the junior market is where they've gone.
A big part of that. And it's been a rough year for stock markets internationally, and the Jamaican junior market has been an oasis.
We've held up.
Yes, and that's a big deal. So I do want to I want to acknowledge that, but so just coming back to all the conversations that I've had, I'm going to blend two convos. I'm going to give you some feedback from some millennials, but I'm going to talk to you directly. And I said, boy, Minister, I mean, how did you feel? Right, coming in, having done all that you've done, coming to government now, right? And I remember we were doing good with the national debt. We we saw past the growth, and I feel like the government was poised to really, because I think for the first time we were coming down under 90% debt to GDP. It was amazing in terms of the things that I have seen in Jamaica.
And the speed.
So how you feel, Minister, when 100 once in a century pandemic is what just crashes into the Jamaican economy? Let's just talk a bit about, I'm sure after experiencing Oman, you must say, boy, this is our biggest crisis.
Yeah, I have seen.
It's not going to happen again.
I have seen stock oil prices go down to $9 per barrel. And remember now, the arrangements between the ruling families in the Gulf Arab state is that we look after you and you obey. Well, when we can't look after you, do you continue to obey? So you see shakiness at that stage. So I've seen that kind of stuff. seeing the pandemic. What I did see though, and if you will think about this, what Andrew Holness has done is simply amazing as a leader. Andrew Holness crafted a cabinet that had the expertise, the youth, the experience, the strength, and he had the perspicacity, the wisdom of a leader to lead people who are able and who have strong opinions, and yet he's able to get them together. So that's what kept us together. Chris Tufton is over there doing his health thing. There are those of us who say business can't lock down. There's some of them who say you have to lock it down, and in there is the Prime Minister managing until they came to the point where they say, you know what, we're not even talking about lockdown anymore. People are going to have to take responsibility for themselves long before the Europeans and the Americans and even the Asians. One big country in Asia still locking down. Andrew Holness moved us away, got our kids back to school, and the economy never locked down. We never locked down the economy. We may have had some nights where you had curfew, but we never locked down the economy. And so that kind of management with the team that he has, and Jamaicans must realize that leadership matters. I mean, what Juliet Holness is saying in Another Side for Another Thing is that honesty is very different when you have a leader who understands, like Winston Churchill in the war. You know, you didn't want anybody else. Now they might vote him off right after the war, but for the war, him was the best man. Okay? And so Andrew Holness and his team have taken us through, and you have to give Andrew a whole heap of credit, because no matter how good you guys are, if Paul Simpson not putting it together and hold it together, the thing now work.
The leader matters.
The leader matters. Leadership matters. So I'm giving that totally to Andrew. And clearly I'm experienced. I'm well trained. I have a lot of experience. But I can recognize political leadership in a man who has done it very well. Because political leadership, when I lead a company, okay, I have 10 or 12 division heads. We meet on a Monday morning or Friday or Wednesday, whenever we meet, and we decide what we're going to do. The final analysis, when we have to go, I will make that call. If we can't get consensus and it's a little bit fractious, I have to make that.
The buck stops with the leader.
The buck stops with the leader, with the CEO. In politics, this is not the way. Why? Because a political leader has to always be thinking of some kind of consensus. Is it consensus in his party, consensus in his cabinet, consensus across the country that a business leader never has to consider? Patrick can decide what he wants over NCB, can talk to the central bank will deal with him. Or the shareholders will deal with the shares.
Yes. Okay,
finish, that done. That's not how, when Andrew Holness makes decisions, it could mean life or death for some people. Do we take the vaccine? Do we not take the vaccine? Do we close down? Do we lock down? Life and death decisions. Business people never even come close. So when them talk about politicians, I've been a businessman for 35, 40 years. Them cuss, but they have a clue what they're talking about. Not a clue. And Jamaicans who talk about politicians who are taking bribes and so on, everybody's on social media. Stop talking about that. When you see a politician take bribe, name him, call him out, put it on social media, call the lawyer. Stop talking foolishness, because politicians work harder than they ever think, and they don't get paid for it. I'm telling you. I have been paid extremely well in my life. Politicians get peanuts, and it's a shame. Okay. No, that's not in the party manifesto. The Prime Minister may have to chop off my foot a bit. But you asked me a question, and that's my honest belief. So, I've been both sides, in the business and in politics.
So the reason I want to give you a bit of space for that is because, I must say, I've given what I've seen, because remember, I think I heard you quote foreign reserves north of $3 billion in one of your speeches. I heard you quote double-digit growth numbers in Jamaica. Now, markets to come back from what I think you call it precipitous and terrible, right? But we're coming back from the pandemic. But listen, I was born in 1986. Right, I've lived through a Jamaica that had no growth for a very, very long time,
and you don't want to go back there.
And I'll say this: I've lived through a Jamaica that was contracting when the rest of the world was booming in the 90s. So
in the Clinton years,
when we came to this pandemic, I said to myself, "Boy, listen, I don't know. I don't know. I mean." I'm saying, boy, with that GDP contraction, you're probably looking at a debt explosion. I don't know what's going to happen to the currency.
Borrow money like every day.
so I have
never
to.
Did. Not a penny.
In fairness, and that's a big deal. That's a big deal. And I wanted to give you space to talk about the management of the crisis, because in talking to the millennials, you did say none of us know the future, but there's a lot of talk about recession out there. There's a lot of people, and I think I'm duty bound to share what the feedback was, and I know you're interested as a minister of government. The outlook is saying, boy, it look like we're coming up on a recession. So in light of that, what does the minister have to say? Can we prepare? One interesting quote I heard. Sean, it was who? Churchill. He was quoting, and he was saying, boy, never let a good crisis go to waste. So he was saying, okay, if we're going into a recession, I mean, I don't know how sophisticated he was thinking about it, but I did say to some of my colleagues, I said, listen, government of Jamaica had cash going into the pandemic, and that was a big deal, right? And we were able to utilize that.
Still have cash.
So the question is, and this was the question from one of my colleagues, okay, never let a crisis go to waste. Can we, if a recession does come, can we exploit that to the benefit of the country? How are you thinking about it as minister? Are you sitting there shivering, scared about a recession, or are you constructive? What is your thought process?
First of all, I never operate my life from fear. Anytime you operate from fear or someone else controls you. So you cannot do that. Deal with the assessment that is before you and make decisions. The problem is that people don't like to make decisions. They prefer to make other people make decisions for them. So if you're in the decision-making business, make decisions. On the issue of the recession coming and what do we do? One of the things that I was at the British High Commission this morning, the British Investment Institute, I think BII, is coming back to Jamaica after leaving for 20 years. But Jamaican investors, two of our biggest investors, I was there at the British High Commission for another event about 3 weeks ago. Two of our biggest business houses took me aside and said, we feel so confident about Jamaica that this year we're going to put in billions of dollars investment in the country. We believe this is the place to go. Many people who, even in Guyana and the rest of the Caribbean, we know people from all over the Caribbean who are coming to Jamaica and said, Jamaica is where we want to be to invest. Jamaican government seems to be going the right way. No matter what other people, the investors are coming to Jamaica from certainly across CARICOM and even wider field. So we believe that we will be buoyant. We're not borrowing extra money. And we have still, even if the biggest market goes in recession, in that market, we as Jamaicans must find niches, because, we're not talking about 300 million people or 30 million people. We're talking about 3 million people. So we must be smart enough. You and your young friends must be smart enough. Get on a plane, get on the internet. Look on what you can sell on YouTube and sell to niches in that very big market, because even if it goes in a recession, it's still a very rich country. So we should not be fearful. And then, of course, Guyana is there, but it's because as long as Mr. Putin is prosecuting his war, oil is going to be an issue. Okay?
Guyana have plenty.
Guyana has plenty. Guyana has now money to build out its other resources, timber resources, water resources, hospitality. all things that they're not going to stop because the recession is going, because they have a small population that can handle it. So we look at where we go and where do we sell our products. So you, even in the hardest of times, you find opportunities.
Yeah.
And that's what we have to do. So tell your millennial friends who are young and strong and bright and well-trained, that's what they must do.
And, you know, I don't know what you think, in a sense. I thank you for that. But I mean, I'm looking at the opportunity in Guyana, and I'm saying those guys are on track to suck away $20 billion in cash, right? In cash. In their resource fund come 2027. For perspective, everything we produce in Jamaica for the entire year is 14 and a half, right? In a good year. So those guys will be able to.
So between now and there, Raul, you know how much opportunities we have.
It's huge.
Let's not even argue. Get dressed, bathe up, get some nice cologne, put on yourself, and go down there.
Absolutely.
Go work and work hard, and come back here quickly and work here. So too, in other words, you have to make sure that you're flexible and you're doing well, or you produce things from here and sell down there.
And that's what I wanted to know. Is it fair to look on it and say, boy, you know, so they need to do a lot of construction. We do building material in Jamaica. Maybe we can ship building material down there.
Look, man, we have the special economic zone, the logistics. This must be the logistics hub. When Guyana needs whatever they use, marl or whatever they use, limestone, whatever, cement and so on, because the draft in the Demerara River is about 6 meters. It's very, very shallow. So this must be the logistics center, and you send everything down there, and then they can move it small amount until they're going to build ports. Another 4 or 5 years, you won't recognize the Demerara port area. It'll be very different. But until then, there's a lot of opportunity. And until then, those are the years of recession. What recession?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. These guys
turn up the logistics center right here in Jamaica. Come together as a team. And listen, man, stop talking about it. You go down there and you say, them need sheets. Go sell the sheets.
Sell the sheets,
okay, move the product.
If you
get it here, and if you get it in the special economic zone, you don't pay any tax. So you can buy a whole container, rebox it here for 5 hotels. You don't pay any tax on it or duty because it's in the free zone, and you ship it out.
And listen, our brothers make their money.
You want me to say anything else more? Said enough now.
Yeah, no, we definitely coming down to it, and I mean, I think there's a good two-way opportunity, and our brothers.
Yes, remember, it's not just one way; it's two-way. Guyana must find things. They sell us a lot of rice.
Yeah,
we sell them right now until they make their refinery. We sell them a lot of heavy diesel. We sell them a lot of fuel. It's one of our biggest exports to Guyana. So we need to do that. We're now looking to buy our oil from them as a safe place to get oil from in the region. And so we have to have trade. We buy a lot of rice from them. If the richer we get, we're going to eat more and better stuff, so we'll buy more from them. So it must be a two-way trade.
When they make that money, they're going to need somewhere to invest it.
And they're going to need some place to invest it. Yeah. Where you remember how you invest? Where you can get out your money.
Yes. That's
the test of a good investment destination or a good place to put your money. Can I get it out? And Jamaica has, as you know, free
purpose-built.
No currency restriction.
No issues. Minister, thank you very much.
For the pleasure. Thank you so much, Raul, for having me on.
Yeah, man.
You know, I must tell you this. About a month ago, I was meeting with the British High Commission, and after many years, we actually had a positive trade balance for a period of time, including the current time, with Britain.
Really?
Yeah. Well, once we used to have, when we used to export a lot of sugar. Yeah. And then, of course, we didn't. So we bought their cars, we bought their everything, and we didn't sell very much. So Britain is a place, and you have a strong diaspora in Britain, and they want Jamaican products, and so it's a good place to export to. Atlanta is a city we should focus on. Lots of Jamaicans there. Florida, of course, Miami and Fort Lauderdale region, even Miramar, all over the place. You go to New York, big Jamaican diaspora, and in Canada. On the East Coast. So there are many other places that we must focus on in terms of exporting that we can go. And then, of course, we have the Caribbean. There's nothing wrong with taking on Trinidad. Trinidad has been selling a lot of stuff to us. We can invest and sell to Trinidad and Barbados. There's nothing wrong with that at all. We have just taken them off and just decide that we mustn't. Well, I see more and more Jamaicans going. I was talking to John Mahfood. John Mahfood is all over the Caribbean, selling his Caribbean teas and so on. And he's recommending that Jamaicans go to the Caribbean, and I'm right there recommending with him. So we're not giving up on any place. China is not a big enough importer of us. We buy a lot from them. They buy a few things from us. But why we shouldn't be selling more to China and India? So we must have, when you get a focus on export, you begin to say, where can I go? Yeah. Where must I go? But if you're never thinking about it or talking about it or invest towards it, you don't go anywhere. So yeah, you're going to hear me a lot. Remember, if you invite me to your funeral, I'm going to find a way to talk about exports.
We will say product.
You've just listened to an episode of the Barita Podcast. The Barita Podcast is available on all Barita's social media platforms. If you'd like to invest with Barita Investments Limited, visit our website at barita.com or contact us at 876-926-2681 to get started.